Welcome back. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from today? We'd love to know. Now, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's dive into today's gripping story. The small exam room smelled like a mix of clean medicine, wet fur, and the rain that had blown in with them. The metal table was cold and bright under the light. On it lay Shadow, the young German shepherd who used to light up rooms with his eyes. Now those eyes were cloudy. His breathing came short and shallow. His paws hung limp over the edge of the table, nails clicking softly when he shifted. 10-year-old Lily Harper had both arms wrapped around his neck. Her cheek was pressed into the thick black and tan fur as if her own warmth could hold him in place. Tears ran down her face and soaked into his coat. She did not wipe them away. She just kept whispering his name against his ear, small and steady, as if words could stitch a life back together. Across from her, Dr. Grace Morgan, the lead vet at Riverside Animal Clinic, pulled a syringe from a drawer and checked the label twice. Her movements were gentle and exact, the way a person moves when they know a thing by heart. She had done this many times, too many, but her eyes stayed on the girl and the dog, on the way grief can sit quietly and still fill a room too. The corners. She watched a child say a goodbye. No child should have to practice. In the corner stood Emily Harper, arms wrapped across her ribs like she was holding herself together from the outside. 6 months earlier, she had already said goodbye to one great love when her husband died. She had learned how silence can sound like a house cracking. Now she was here to watch her daughter lose one more piece of safety. She kept breathing like someone afraid air might run out. Dr. Morgan spoke softly, her voice a blanket. "When you're ready, Lily." Before Lily could answer, a low sound rolled up from Shadow's chest. Not a weak cry, not fear. It was a growl, with a purpose. His eyes sharpened and turned from dull to alert. He fixed on the vet assistant who had stepped forward to help. The sound filled the little room. It buzzed against Lily's arms. Lily's fingers tightened in his fur. "Shadow?" Her voice was confused, not angry. The assistant stopped where he was, one hand lifted, eyes wide. Dr. Morgan's brows drew together. She knew what fear looked like in a sick animal. This wasn't that. This was warning. Her hand hovered over the syringe. The air in the room seemed to tilt. For the first time that morning, she wondered if this story was not only about letting go, but about why Shadow would not. Half a year earlier, laughter didn't live in the Harper home. After the sudden loss of her dad, Lily had gone quiet, moving through the days like a shadow herself. Books, closed doors, short answers. Emily tried to reach her with trips to the river, Saturday art classes, baking nights where flour dusted their noses. Nothing brought her back for more than a minute at a time. It was a gray Saturday of errands when they walked past the window of the Riverside shelter and saw him. Behind the glass, a lanky German shepherd pup had his nose pressed against the pane so hard his breath fogged it in a soft circle. Ears too big for his head, paws too big for his body, clumsy legs, and eyes. Soft, hopeful eyes that looked like they knew something about hurt and chose love anyway. "Mom," Lily whispered, stopping so suddenly that Emily took 2 more steps before she noticed. Lily crouched. The puppy drew closer, nose to glass. For the first time in weeks, a small spark returned to Lily's voice. It sounded like a door cracking open. Inside, a shelter volunteer told them the pup had been found near the highway. No collar, no microchip. Healthy, playful, starving for attention. Emily hesitated. Another living thing to feed, another schedule to keep, another heart to guard. But when the pup leaned his head into Lily's small hands, as if they had always belonged to him, something gentle inside Emily snapped free. She signed the papers that same afternoon. In their home, Shadow filled the quiet places. He trotted behind Lily down the hallway, waited with his chin on her doorway when she closed the door, and curled at the foot of her bed every night like a warm guard. By autumn, Lily's laugh found its way back into the rooms, bright and light like sunny windows after a storm. For a while, it felt like happiness had learned their address again. On a bright afternoon in Riverside Park, nothing seemed strong enough to break what they had rebuilt, until a stranger stepped into their path. The late sun poured honey across the wide grass. The river shone like a ribbon. Lily stood in the open field and sent a scuffed tennis ball flying with a throw that made her giggle. Shadow charged after it, paws thudding the ground, ears flopping at each jump. Emily sat on a bench, camera bag at her side, phone in her hand, pretending to scroll, but really just soaking in the sound of her daughter's laughter, the music she had missed. Shadow bounded back, tail slapping air, tongue out, looking half proud and half ridiculous. Lily reached to throw again, but Shadow went still. His ears tipped forward, his nose lifted. A low growl grew in his chest. Emily followed his stare. A man in a dark jacket had left the path and was walking across the grass toward them. He was tall and held himself like someone who practiced posture in a mirror. He smiled with his mouth, not his eyes. "Fine-looking dog," he said. His voice was smooth, but there was something sharp at the edges. "German Shepherds can be a handful. If they aren't trained right, they get protective." His eyes lingered on Shadow. "I run a training facility. Could teach him some discipline." Shadow moved between Lily and the man, shoulders locked, hackles lifted. The growl deepened, steady and clear. "He's just protective," Emily said, keeping her tone polite, her body still. "Protective turns dangerous," the man said, the corner of his mouth curving into something that didn't belong in daylight. "Shame to let it get that far." He looked at the dog 1 second too long, then turned and walked away without another word. Shadow watched until the man was gone from sight. His ears stayed high. His muscles held their shape. Then, as if some invisible rope pulled tight and then snapped, a shiver ran down his back. Lily reached for his collar. He stepped sideways. His legs wobbled, clumsy, like he had suddenly forgotten how to be made of strong things. He shook once, twice, trying to throw off something that would not leave. His tail dropped. His ears sagged. Emily stood up fast. "Lily, step back!" But the warning fell apart as Shadow's knees bent. He swayed, caught, stumbled. His chest pumped too quick. The color drained from his gums. His eyes blurred like a curtain closing. "Shadow!" Lily cried, dropping to her knees. She put both hands on his head and felt the weight of him sink into her palms. All his strength, gone in a breath. He slid sideways onto the grass with a soft thud. The tennis ball rolled out of his mouth and tapped her shoe, then stopped and lay there like a small yellow moon. The air went very still. A child laughed at the swings. Somewhere another dog barked, the sound too cheerful for this piece of the world. "Mom," Lily said, voice thin and breaking, "something's wrong." Emily's heart squeezed hard. "Give him to me," she said. Her voice stayed even, but her hands shook as she lifted the heavy, limp body. He felt wrong, heavy in a way that means weakness, not size. The park kept moving as if nothing had happened. For Emily, the whole world narrowed to the slow rise of Shadow's ribs and the panic on her daughter's face. They ran to the car. Lily climbed into the back, pulling Shadow's head onto her lap. She stroked his ears with small, careful hands. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please, we're almost there. Don't go, please." Her voice cracked. She kept talking anyway, the way people do when they need words to hold someone to earth. The clinic was 10 minutes away. Red lights lasted forever. Emily's knuckles turned white around the wheel. Every few seconds, she glanced in the mirror and saw the same picture. Lily, bent over Shadow, whispering prayers in pieces. Inside Riverside Animal Clinic, Dr. Grace Morgan looked up from the patient she was finishing. One look at Shadow told her urgency. Exam room 2. Now. Her hands moved quickly but gently. She asked a few questions, with her eyes while she checked lungs, gums, belly. How long? She said aloud. Just now, Emily said. He was fine and then he wasn't. She lifted her hands in a small, helpless motion toward her unmoving dog. Dr. Morgan worked fast, the way years of work make you fast. Pulse, weak, gums, pale, abdomen, tender. She looked up and met Emily's eyes without hiding. I'll run tests right away. Minutes stretched and folded. She came back with a voice that tried to be steady and kind at once. Severe multi-organ failure, she said. It's moving quickly. Lily's answer was a whisper that sounded like it might shatter. You can fix him, right, doctor? Morgan didn't speak for a second. Then she did. We can keep him comfortable tonight, she said, but you should prepare to say goodbye in the morning. Emily swallowed against the ache in her throat. Lily buried her face in Shadow's fur and spoke through tears. Then I want him with me, she said. Just one more night. That night, their house felt too quiet, like sound had decided to stay outside. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed loud and rude in the still air. In Lily's room, the lamp was turned low, filling the space with warm, soft light. Shadow lay curled on the bed. His breaths were small but even. Every rise and fall made Lily's shoulders loosen, just a little. She draped her arm over him and kept her hand moving in slow circles against the thick fur at his neck. Emily stood at the doorway, one hand on the frame as if the wood could hold up what her bones could not. She wanted to tell Lily to rest, to sleep while she could. The words would not cross her lips. She saw again the look in Dr. Morgan's eyes, the look that holds empathy and acceptance at the same time, and she could not force hope where none had been offered. I'm right here, Lily whispered to Shadow, her voice soft like a lullaby. You're going to be okay. Just rest. I'm staying with you. Shadow's eyes drifted open at the sound of her voice. Even weak, his gaze tracked her face with an alert attention that did not match a dog at the end. His ears twitched, small, as if testing the room. As if even here, with Lily's hand on him and the house quiet, he was still listening for something else, for someone else, for a sound only he knew. Across town, Dr. Morgan sat at her kitchen table, a cup-off, untouched tea cooling beside her laptop. Shadow's test results glowed on the screen, the numbers harsh and unforgiving. But the rapid onset, the pattern didn't match any natural illness she'd seen. She pulled out old case files, dogs with sudden, unexplained organ failure, the kind that never survived long enough for deeper investigation. She flipped through pages, the same question pressing harder with each comparison. What if something or someone was causing it? She closed the laptop, her decision made. Tomorrow morning, before she lifted a syringe, she was going to take a much closer look at Shadow. Morning came far too soon. Emily drove in silence, her hand gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. In the back seat, Lily sat with Shadow's head in her lap, stroking between his ears. He was weak, but his eyes followed her every movement. At Riverside Animal Clinic, the waiting room was empty. Dr. Grace Morgan was already prepping exam room, her face composed, her instruments laid out on a sterile tray. You can say your goodbyes, she told Lily gently. I'll give you a moment. Lily slid off her chair and knelt beside Shadow on the floor. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her cheek pressed to his fur. I love you, boy, she whispered. The clinic's vet assistant stepped forward to help lift Shadow onto the table. But before his hand could make contact, Shadow's entire body language shifted. His eyes moments ago glazed with fatigue, snapped into focus, sharp, unyielding. The fur along his spine bristled, his ears thrust forward, liquidar locking on a threat. A sound rose from deep inside him. Not the whimper of a sick dog, but a deep guttural growl that vibrated through the room. It was primal, the kind of warning that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Then, with surprising speed for his weakened state, Shadow twisted his body sideways and pressed into Lily. His front legs hooked firmly around her knee, pulling her toward him. The grip was deliberate, protective, as if he waist-trying to anchor her in place, shielding her from something only he understood. The assistant froze mid-motion, his hand suspended in the air. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Dr. Grace Morgan's eyes narrowed. That's not a reaction I'd expect from a dog in multi-organ failure. She crouched, fingers parting the thick fur just behind Shadow's right ear. Her touch was careful, searching. Then she stopped. "There," she murmured. Beneath the fur lay a pinpoint puncture mark, tiny, precise, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Her voice hardened. "This isn't from any injection we've given here," Emily's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," Morgan said, standing, "someone injected him with something designed to mimic terminal illness." The assistant's breath quickened. His eyes flicked toward the door. Dr. Morgan's gaze snapped to him. "Don't move!" She snatched the phone from the counter, her voice steady but cold. "We're calling the police!" The police cruiser's back door slammed shut with a metallic thud, taking the vet assistant with it. Through the clinic's front window, Shadow's gaze followed until the car pulled away. His ears stayed high, his muscles taut as though he knew the threat was not yet over. Dr. Grace Morgan sealed a vial of blood and passed it to the lead officer. "This will test positive for a synthetic compound, one that mimics catastrophic organ failure. It doesn't happen by accident." Hours later, news came crackling over the police radio. Suspect Victor Kane allocated units moving in. At the East Side Training Facility. Victor met the officers at the gate, his smile rehearsed, his tone polite. He denied everything, claimed he'd never met the dog, didn't know the assistant, and had no idea why he was being questioned. But the assistant had already started talking. Piece by piece, the facade cracked. Phone records placed Victor near Riverside Park at the exact time Shadow collapsed. Witnesses described seeing him approach Emily and Lily. It all fit. Months earlier, Shadow had been part of Victor's underground dogfighting network, stolen from a breeder, chosen for his bloodline. But during girly training, Shadow had refused to attack. His defiance marked him for removal. But he had escaped before Victor could decide his fate. Emily and Lily had adopted him from a rescue, unaware of his past. Seeing Shadow again in the park had been a problem Victor couldn't ignore. The shepherd's memory was as sharp as his instincts. One growl in the wrong place, one sign of recognition, and Victor's operation could be exposed. So he acted quickly, his voice smooth with idle chatter as his hand, hidden by the line of his jacket, found the spot behind Shadow's ear and pressed the syringe home. The vet assistant's role was simple. Be there when the sick dog returned. Make sure the euthanasia went through without question. But Shadow had recognized the scent, and in warning Lily, he had done more than save himself. He had pulled the first thread that would unravel Victor Kane's empire. The clinic felt strangely quiet after the police left, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Shadow lay on a padded mat in the exam room, his head resting on Lily's lap. Her small hands moved gently over his fur, careful to avoid the tender spot behind his ear. Dr. Grace Morgan returned, carrying a small vial of clear liquid. "This," she said softly, "is an antidote. If we got to him in time, it should counteract the compound Victorist." Emily stepped closer. "Will it hurt him?" "No, but the next hour will tell us everything." Lily bent low, whispering into Shadow's ear. "You're going to be okay, boy. You have to be." Dr. Morgan found a vein and slid the needle in with practiced care. The antidote flowed slowly, drop by drop, into Shadow's bloodstream. For a long moment, nothing changed. His breathing stayed shallow, his eyes half-lidded. Then Lily felt it, a faint twitch in the paw draped over her knee. She looked down. Shadow's ear flicked at the sound of her voice. His chest rose a little deeper. Emily exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Minutes turned into an hour. The harsh edge of Shadow's breathing eased. His eyes opened, cloudy but focused, finding Lily's face. His tail gave a slow, deliberate thump against the mat. Tears slid down Lily's cheeks as she cradled his head. "There you are," she whispered. Dr. Morgan checked his vitals, a faint smile breaking through her professional mask. "He's not out of the woods yet, but he's fighting, and with rest, he should make a full recovery." For the first time since that afternoon in the park, the fear in the room loosened its grip. Shadow had been given back to them, and this time they weren't letting him go. 2 days later, police announced Victor Kane's arrest. Raids on his properties uncovered a full-scale dog-fighting network and rescued dozens of animals. At home, Shadow lay, on a blanket by the window, breathing evenly, the light back in his eyes. Lily sat cross-legged beside him, stroking his fur. "You're a hero, you know," she whispered. Dr. Grace Morgan stopped by to check on him. "He's healing well," she said with a smile. "And thanks to him, Victor's operation is over." Emily looked down at Shadow. "We'll never let you be in danger again." Sunlight streamed through the glass, painting the room in gold. Shadow edged closer to Lily, resting his head in her lap with a weary sigh. His tail gave a slow, steady wag. Not just relief, but a promise.